Welcome back to the garage, everybody. We're going to get started on our next project. So again, another nice little easy project here. I showed a little sneak peek earlier of some of the stuff that's coming this way. So what we're going to do today is put on a coolant overflow tank. What this does is it helps when the coolant warms up and it expands. Typically the one that's in your car is plastic. As you can see, the one that's in here, after the motor swap, no longer sits where it's supposed to. It's pretty old and crusty and beat up. So we're going to put this unit in there and let's take off from there. One thing that we need to keep in mind with the install is making sure that the coolant overflow tank isn't too far down in the engine bay. Here in a second I'll kind of show you a few different locations, but one thing that's a lifesaver when you're working on your engine bay is using these little magnetic trays. So I have my hardware that came with the kit, and now I can stick this anywhere on the car and it's not going anywhere. I don't have to fish or find any screws in the engine bay. Hardware all handled, we're going to go ahead and figure out where we want to put this. Typically you want to keep it as high as or a little bit higher than your radiator cap is. So our factory one sat in this area, but all those brackets are gone now. So if I try to put this back there, there's really nothing to bolt it to unless we go way down in the engine bay, which is not what we need. Another good spot is right here next to the shock tower, but we may run into issues with the hood closing as well as kind of how this intake is routed. So what we want to do is keep it forward and away from the exhaust manifold, and one spot that we found is right here at the front. There's actually a couple of stamped holes that line up perfectly with the brackets that came with our kit. So that's where we're going to set it. We're going to put it right here, keeps it nice and level with the radiator, and now we're going to start with the install. After test fitting this a little bit more with the brackets, we found that it actually will interfere with the intake manifold. So it'll come into contact with it with the brackets that we currently have if we reuse these holes that are up front. It may not look like too big of a deal right now with it just sitting in the car, but one thing that you need to take in mind is how much the motor's going to rock in the engine bay. With it being that close, it made me a bit uncomfortable that if there's some excessive rock of the engine, that it'll hit our coolant overflow tank and damage it. So what we did is we looked around a little bit more up front here, and we found a really nice, empty location here that this bracket just so happens to line up under. So what we're going to do is we're going to set it here instead. Now it does sit at a bit of an angle, so I will tilt it down, but now this is going to give us a ton more clearance. So I got my trusty rolly cart out with the tools, and now we can go ahead and start getting the bracket put on. So the hardware that came with it, the bolt is 8mm, the nut is 10mm. So I've already got those wrenches set off to the side. Fish this under. Now it does have two holes for the mounting bracket, but I'm not too concerned about making sure both of them are on there, mostly because this tank is really lightweight. It's made out of aluminum, and it shouldn't ever be totally full. So the amount of weight that this thing's going to have to support is very, very minor, and this is going to be more than enough to hold it in place. Okay. Bracket is now firmly affixed, and now this is how the tank will fit on. Like I mentioned earlier, this does sit at a bit of an angle, so I'm going to bend this down slightly so then our tank will sit nice and flush, and we can route the hose right on over. With the bracket where we need it now, I'm going to go ahead and get the old catch can off, or the expansion tank off. And the way to do this is you just take the little rubber hose off, on this side. Take this guy, set it off to the side. And then we'll take our new line. It did come with clamps. Typically it's not a pressurized system, so I'm not too concerned with these. But since they're there, it's just an extra sense of security. So I'll just slide that over, put that up, and then we can tighten that. But now we need to run the hose down and around. Okay. And then I will grab the other clamp for the other side. Get that pressed on here. Trying to get that all the way on there. And then likewise, we'll clamp that down. With the line ran, we re-ran it over the top here. It'll help shorten it up some. This is really long, so once we get it mounted, I'll go ahead and trim this and then get that other clamp back on there. So now we just need to mount the canister to the bracket. The bracket has a nice little V dip in it, so it follows the contour of the canister itself. And what we want to do is wrap that around both. And then start getting this guy tightened up. Now with the new coolant overflow tank installed, we got the line run. It is super bright orange, so it stands out. I may look into getting a black line later, but overall it cleaned it up a little bit. It's not exactly in the most beautiful spot. It is kind of in the middle up front, so I'll probably move it later on. There's a lot of other things that are going to be going on in this engine bay, but for now we have it installed in a nice spot that we can remove it and relocate it later. So if you guys have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them down below and give us a like and subscribe. See you guys next time.